you are also providing an impact and outcome on 3 pivots. The first pivot is environmental outcomes. We want to be sure that you are not polluting the environment. And what is pollution? Very important for our country. And I'm going to digress a bit. Nepal is having a huge problem of accelerated melting of the snow cap. Nepal is typically called the third pole. In terms of the glacial ice that is available, it's almost the third after North and South Pole, and it's going quickly. It is because of a thing called black carbon, which is an aerosol. It just sits on the mountain peaks, and it keeps absorbing other particles of similar nature. And it accelerates the glacial melt and warming 5x, 10x, depending on where it sits. We're not responsible for this. We are sandwiched between 2 industrialized nations who use thermal power, fossil fuel, to burn. So even if tomorrow by a stroke of a pen, Nepal became completely electric and green and hydro and all of that, this black carbon will not reduce. So we have to worry. So environmental outcomes is something that you need to be really careful about. Noise pollution, air pollution. Social outcomes is yet another pivot. How are you ensuring that the communities that you work with, your own staff, are being maintained well, and you're not misusing them, that you are not using cheap labor? We don't want to call it slavery, but in urban day, that's a term that is akin. Most global firms, if you go to their website, they have a code of conduct, and they put out a slavery, anti-slavery code also about how will they produce their goods. For example, if you're into leather manufacturing, are you using children? If you're using carpet manufacturing, how are the carpets being weaved in the houses where you're giving them the raw materials? The third one is about governance. How are you governing this growth of your company? Are you taking shortcuts? Do you have a PAN card? Are you paying your taxes on time? These are all important issues, and this is a part of the second bottom line that I'm talking about. The third bottom line is about culture and various things that Avello spoke about. But it's coming. At least Nepal has started embracing the double bottom line impact culture. So some of you who have some spare time in the evenings or early mornings when you don't have to run around with your projects and products, think about how will you start embracing this new thought. There's a lot of critical people who and resources that you can use already for thinking through this ESG mindset. It's simple, it's not tough, and therefore the choice of the team is important. Choose people who understand the subject matter, and you can leave them to do their job that they do best. So I just want to tell you that at this part of your growth phase, think internal, look for people who can support you, get a great team, don't look at the commercial institutionalized credit opportunities. It's not going to come your way. But it's a tough ask. But I'll stop here because otherwise it'll get pretty dismal.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you so much. Very well said. In the very beginning of the startup culture, I don't know how practical for them to focus on the environmental outcomes, environmental consciousness while they're producing the product, right? A nation like Nepal. Yeah, I think that will come by the maturity of the civilization and the businesses, right? But at the same time, if our startup has to compete with multinationals, they have to come to that level to compete with, right? Thank you very much for highlighting the compliance, the culture piece. Since I've been working with Microsoft for 15 years, right? The stability that Microsoft has since past more than 30 years, one of the biggest pillar is the compliance, right? I have seen multi-million dollar we've just thrown away, just because the way of doing business was not right, right? Initially, I couldn't understand why we are giving up those scale of the business when customer really wanted to buy. right? Such as, taking the example of the Myanmar at the moment, as a seller, right, I had to give up $1.4 million single deal, single shot, right? Government of Myanmar wanted to buy, but our compliance team said we can't sell. Simple like that. So we had to give up. So later I understood the gravity of this compliance and then international regulations, right? From the investor's perspective, if you're not comply with those, it's not a matter of losing that $1.4 million, but it's multi-billion-dollar impact for the company, right? So that's a huge gravity that that we have to think for the long term. If you're startup, right, the shortcuts are not very good for the long-term health. Thank you so much for highlighting that. I wanted to come back to the question around the funding part, right? I have run I've run 7 startups in my past life, right? Most of them are, the IT related. And one of the biggest failure that I have had faced was the financial discipline and the capital management. What would be, your advice for this community looking at the Nepalese environment to prepare themselves for the short-term and the long-term investment plans? Joseph, I think I want to take a little more time on that.
I think Avelo can also throw light on that. But I can quickly tell you that there's a guy who's just entered the room, Vidya Bardi Sigdel. He's going to talk to you in the afternoon. Yeah, lift up his hand. Catch him when you go out for coffee. Okay, he won't fund you, but he'll give you a lot of ideas. Okay, now quickly, in the initial part of your growth stage, stick to own money. Don't go out because you still don't have a commercially viable product. You get over leveraged, you run yourself thin. You have to start making payments. Okay, and there is a way to do that, financial structuring. But I don't want to teach you financial structuring in this way. It's better taught when you actually talk to an investor. Okay, and you actually float a company and you decide what is tier 1, what is tier 2, and what is subordinate and all of that. Keep it simple. Initially, when you are sure that, till you are sure that you have a viable product and you have whatever you believe is the critical mass to take you to the next stage, stay with your own funds, your friends, family. Family is a very big, important component of people who support you. Your parents look up to you. They may not like what you're doing, but they will come to your help. Okay, so use that and then only look for debt and leverage your balance sheet, because in the growth mode, you'll require a lot of short-term debt and there are various vehicles that can support you. I'll stop here because I will go and shoot this.
Can you hear me? How many of you watch House of Cards on Netflix? Okay, so my first TED Talk was on the topic currency of relationships, because I was a 19-year-old college student. My father and mother got separated. I was $37,000 in debt. I had no money. I was negative in money. And I was building my startup in a country where I had no legal way of being an entrepreneur in a visa. So I got my H-1B visa in the US under my own company. Now I'll tell you how that happened. And that was exactly what he rightly said, is that what in Hindi we call the jugaad mentality or the bootstrapping mindset, right? But you have nothing, you have the currency of relationship. You tell the smartest people that you can find, your friends, hey, let's build this dream together. If we are not successful, it's 2 years or 3 years that were not wasted, because it's 10 times more than an MBA. If we are successful, here on, we will live the life of a legend. And based on how much you can inspire the right people with the right skills, with the right chemistry to build that team, you can build your startup and go from there. And the currency of relationship, where you're not able to pay a salary, is about thank you very much for doing this. It means a lot that you're spending so much time. It means a lot that you're doing this. I appreciate this, even though we failed this first iteration. But know for a fact that this is the stepping stone. So like that, motivating the team. So the team keeps going. When I was building my first startup, 2009, Obama just came into power and economy also tanked. Investors who promised us to invest backed off. I had no idea what I was going to do. there was a time when I was literally 1 month away from being homeless. And I started a cheese biscuit business. So on the streets of Chicago, we were selling cheese biscuits on Saturdays and Sundays. Saturdays I would bake, Sundays we would sell, and Monday to Friday we were building a tech business because the business has to keep going. No salaries, only currency of relationship. Before we were about to just, everything was going to go over, we got funded, built up product, sold it, whatnot. The rest is history. But the point is, there is this struggling period, and you will not have investors coming at the time of ideation. They will only come when you can prove to them that you can grow their money. Investors are not parents or charity or anything. So you need to learn to leverage the resources that are at your disposal. That means your friends, mentors, professors, teachers, politicians, parents, whoever you can find to get you from point A to point B to point C. And that's how you manage without money and eventually generate. I'll give you a mantra. Start with zero money, grow with customers' money, scale with investor money. Okay? So as you generate some customers with your minimum viable product, make some revenue there. With that, keep that money, put it in the business. Don't buy a Ferrari yet. And keep pushing the money, rolling the money back in the business, and slowly, slowly show the traction. Then investors come in. Wow, your month-on-month growth is so good. This is worth investing in, right? Unless you have that, why should anybody invest in your idea? So understand that, and with that bootstrapping jugaad mentality, keep going forward and build your team. Have a great idea, average team, you're going to fail. Average idea, amazing team, you are more likely to succeed. That I'll...
Wonderful. Yeah, that answers my the internal query as well. If I really have to know the advice, any of the startup, I would definitely give this mantra to succeed. Thank you so much. Manish, would you like to add something onto the same topic?
Unfortunately, in Nepal, obviously, even if we see in terms of the investors, obviously we have Dolma, we have Global Equity Fund. I'm struggling for my license for the last 3 years, so this is a country where even though there is a lot of talk about startups, there is a lot of, kind of a policy from the government. Every year we see in the budget that, the government is going to fund or at least support the startup. They will provide, subsidized loan and everything. This has not really materialized. So, even from the Jugaad, I think, you really need to prove to your investors that, the things that you're doing is really viable and it is really making money. I think then only it will really attract money because, even here, the entire private equity venture capital space is not so much well developed. It's just coming up. Obviously, Dolma is putting some stones on that. Obviously, we're trying. There are a couple of other players who is trying to come. And hopefully, the government will listen to all of us and then, the ecosystem will be developed more.
All right, thank you. With your government emphasize, I had a couple of other questions as well because we are running out a lot of time, right? I just wanted to ask one last question with all of you, and also summarize your recommendation to startups here, right? What should be the government role? Now, I've seen that government is already here, right? What should be the government role on this? Not only from the startup culture, but the economy of the country, right? How should that the government should think from the long-term health of the country, investing in the startup, right? From that angle, what should be the government role and the organization like yours? How do we do the peer-to-peer the partnership with them and then build the long-term startup culture in the country? Maybe.
Thank you. Very interesting question, especially in Nepal. I hope a couple of government people who were in this room would still be in the room and listen to us. Well, a long struggle. I've told my own story that from last 3 years I've been banging my head on the wall in the government offices, basically to give a permission to my private equity fund to give investments. Unfortunately, I decided kind of a very long road, taking, being under the government's regulation and try to come into this business. Talking to Nepal, the entire concept of startup really came into picture from early 2000. when the government, I think in 71-72 budget, year 71-72 budget, basically stated that they're going to support the startup because they see there is, a prospect, especially for younger people, and then obviously, there is a lot of traction on that one. So even though it was very populist in terms of the wording there, they kind of, had that. But till now, we have not seen any fruit of that. Every year, every budget, every policy, every government office, especially if you go to the Ministry of Finance, everybody is talking about, but without any kind of, a fruit out there. I think one of the biggest challenge, especially in our bureaucracy, is the bureaucrat and even the politician who really do not understand the gravity of the situation. Interestingly, what happened last week? I was called by the Ministry of Finance, and there were a couple of secretaries who were trying to understand what is startup. And then I was very curious in terms of why the hell they were calling me, and then trying to understand from me. And then it came to into my knowledge that a couple of their sons and daughters were really interested in that. So they really wanted to understand how it works, because they read in the report that out of 100 of startups, only 10 will really prosper, and they wanted to know how to become that 10, so that at least they can give some some idea to their own sons and daughters in terms of how to go about it, right? So this is the mentality of the thing. But I think looking at the youth dividend that we have, and the transformation in the political landscape that we are seeing, especially in the recent election, and most probably in the upcoming election, most probably I think this traction will go on, and hopefully most probably will be like market like India or even Bangladesh in a couple of years. So that's my take on it.
Thank you. Evalu, what's your take on that?
I don't think I'm qualified to tell the government what to do, being outside your country. But I will say to the startups here, don't wait for the government. Don't blame the government either. Don't wait for your parents. Don't blame your parents either. Don't wait for anyone. You are all you have. Get your friends, get your team together, and figure out on your own what you can do. Luckily for you, a lot of free tools are available today. The digital world is available to you. If you are born after the 90s, there's no reason on earth you will not use the cloud, the internet, your smartphones and your laptop to build a digital business. Don't get into physical space, because I don't think Nepal, India, our countries are really meant for that physical aspect. India struggles with manufacturing and other things, but we thrive in digital. And I would suggest the same for you. Don't worry about the government or whatever. Even your geography doesn't matter. As long as you have internet, wherever you are, you can make money. And you have talent, you have creativity, you have the skills. Just get that. Make sure you're skilled. You have the right people who are skilled. You have the right goal. You understand the future, where the problem lies, and where people need entrepreneurs like us to make solution. That's good enough. Don't look at the government. Just focus on yourself and make the best out of it.
Okay,
Indeed.
I think we need to wrap this up. I want to wrap it up on a positive note. And this is my biggest axiom that I tell all my staff. I'm a banker, and I say, don't come into me using regulations as a crutch. Okay? Because the minute we want to do something, they'll say, Section 2.3.c says it cannot be done. Yes, I can also read it cannot be done. And here's my personal testimony. 12 years in Nepal, my propensity and probability to achieve success is 65% on regulatory outcomes. I get it done. It takes a while. So just resounding what Avelo said, no one is perfect, nothing is perfect, and there's no better time than now. You just have to walk your way, because your product, your service, your idea can't wait. Choose a different course. Make a different way where there's none. That is your passion. And look for outcomes. And let's not cloud everyone in the government and bureaucracy with the same paint. There are a lot of people who are listening. Reach out, choose your battles well, and you will win the war. Thank you.
All right. Interesting. Thank you so much for the concluding on the good note, right? Yes, the regulation, the government will follow because the innovator has to find a way to move on, right? They will follow because their job is to create the obstacle in the initial, but later they will open up the doors. I've seen that journey, right? The look at the example of the F1 Soft, who have come up with this the paradigm shift on the digital banking in Nepal. Look at the Versant, look at the Verix, they've created a different paradigm of outsourcing business, the digital transformation in government, not only in government, it's also in the banking sector, right? Looking at that speed, nothing is impossible, right? Let's take the, the positive foot forward to make it successful. Yes, personally, I would like to give one mantra that, at least you have to have at least 3 years of patience to make the startup successful. If you sustain 3 years of the stress test with your business, there will be high chance that you'll survive for next 10 decades. With that, I'd like to conclude this session. I believe this has gone a very fruitful session for you. Thank you so much for all the great panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, panelists, and I believe that this has been such a wonderful initiation starting for today's event as well too. It was really very fruitful, and once again a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to our panelists right here for Global Train's Impact Funding on Startups. And now we'd like to present token of love to our panelists right here. We had Mr. Joseph Sylvanus, Alvana Roy, Mr. Manish Thapa, and as a moderator we had Mr. Dipendra Bajacharya. Here we want to present token of love to all our panelists and the moderator as well. Ladies and gentlemen, it was such a fruitful session, and we got to know a lot more things, not only about our panelists, but their struggle times and how they started their business in their own way. So we'd like to now present token of love to Dipendra Bajacharya, our moderator, and also has been handling Microsoft since the last 15 years. We are very much delighted to have you. Next, we would like to present token of love to Alva Leroy from Kolkata Ventures. Thank you so much, sir. Next, we'd like to present token of love to Dr. Manish Thapa from Global Equity Fund. Last but not the least, one of the very inspirational panelists we do had, Mr. Joseph Sylvanus, Managing Director of Dolma Impact Fund and former CEO of Standard Chartered Bank. Thank you so much, sir. And once again, thank you so much all the panelists for making our day, the starting, really very impactful. So ladies and gentlemen, with this, according to our schedule, we are heading on to for a short break, and we'd like to request you all to please enjoy the high tea, and also request you all to be back by 12:30 according to our schedule, so that we can start our another session for startup diplomacy, a new dimension of international relations. And also I'd like to request our top 15 finalists to please make your presentation ready in PPT format, in PDF format, because you will be presenting next. And I believe I would like to take an attendance for all of this. So I believe all our top finalists are right here in the hall already. So can you raise your hands if everyone, one, okay, one is right there, 2, 3, 4, 5, just 5, 6, 7, 8. I believe all are right there. So yes, we'd like to request you to please consult right here in the technical part, and please be ready for your presentations. Thank you so much.